Hello there. Welcome back. Or if this is your first time visiting, welcome to this quiet little corner of the world, a place where we drift back through time together, not to learn, not to memorize, but to forget, to let go of today's worries. Go ahead and find yourself a truly comfortable position. Feel the weight of your blanket settling over you, the softness of your pillow cradling your head, and take a deep breath in. Breathe out slowly. Feel that cool, clean air filling your lungs. Nice and easy, isn't it? Tonight, we won't be talking about earth-shattering battles or mighty kings. No, we'll be talking about smaller things. Things that history has forgotten. Truths that are, perhaps, a little boring. But sometimes, within that boredom, lies the most fascinating truth of all. Have you ever wondered what life would be like without those tiny conveniences we take for granted? A glass of clean water, a light switch, or simply silence. Tonight, we're going to take a journey together. A journey to an age of castles and knights in our imagination. But in reality, an age of plague, punishment, and a thick porridge called pottage. We're going to dive deep into what actually happened during the medieval times. Forget what Hollywood has sold you about chivalry and grand castles. The truth is, you probably couldn't survive a single day. So, before you start drifting off to sleep, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel, but only if you're truly feeling relaxed by what I'm doing here. And if you're still awake enough, leave me a comment letting me know where in the world you're listening from and what time it is where you are. It's wonderful to know that in this quiet night, we're sharing a space together, even though we're thousands of miles apart. Now, close your eyes. Let the only light be the images in your mind. Maybe turn on a small fan for that gentle whisper of moving air. And together, we begin tonight's journey. A journey into comfortable discomfort. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 1325. The year is 1325, and you are a peasant in what will someday be called England. But right now, it's just a collection of muddy villages, stone keeps, and endless work. The sun hasn't risen yet. If you can call what passes for sunlight in this gray, damp world actual sunshine, your day begins not with an alarm clock, but with the deep, resonant toll of church bells echoing across the valley. Dong, dong, dong. Each strike seems to settle into your bones, vibrating through the damp air like a call from another world. This is your wake-up call, your reminder that another day of survival has begun. But let's pause here for a moment. Before we dive into the harsh realities of medieval life, and appreciate something truly extraordinary. Right now, as you listen to this, you're experiencing something that would have been pure magic to our ancestors. Your sheets are clean, actually clean, washed with soap and water that won't make you sick. The air around you is controlled, heated, or cooled to your preference. The light comes at the flip of a switch. If you're thirsty, clean water flows endlessly from a metal spout. If you're hungry, food waits in a box that keeps things cold without ice. A miracle that would have made you either a saint or a witch in medieval times. These aren't luxuries. They're the quiet miracles of modern life. And tonight, as we explore just how brutal the past really was, let these comforts wrap around you like a gentle reminder of how far we've come. Let your body sink deeper into your mattress. Feel your muscles releasing the tension of the day. And prepare to visit a world where every single thing you take for granted simply didn't exist. Because in 1325, comfort wasn't a right. It wasn't even really a concept. It was something that happened to other people. Very briefly, before being snatched away by disease, hunger, or the simple, grinding brutality of daily existence. So breathe in that clean air one more time. Feel the softness beneath you. And let's step back into a world that would kill you with kindness. If kindness existed, which it really didn't. Good news! You're still alive. Bad news. So are the fleas. You open your eyes. There's no gentle sunlight filtering through curtains, just the thick, damp darkness. Your bed, if you can call it that, is a half-rotted straw mattress, stuffed with bugs and dried grass. And it smells like a stable floor. Because, well, it actually was a stable floor 3 months ago. No memory foam. No down pillows. And certainly no Egyptian cotton sheets. Just a wool blanket. A blanket that hasn't been washed since last winter, and now weighs about as much as a small cow from the accumulated grime. You can feel its rough, scratchy texture scraping against your skin. You blink awake as those church bells ring across the distance. Clang, clang. This is the medieval version of an alarm clock, only louder and somehow more cruel. Your house is a wooden hovel, just one room, no windows, and a charming, open concept floor plan where your family, your livestock, and your household insects all share the same space. And the smell? Oh, it's a symphony of scents. A delicate blend of fermented old ale, human sweat, goat musk, and something you can only pray isn't mold. But deep in your soul, you know, it's probably mold. Scented candles haven't been invented, and even if they existed, they'd just melt onto your dirt floor anyway. You try to stretch your shoulders, but immediately regret it, because the air is bitterly cold, and your joints ache. You're 22 years old, but by medieval standards, you're middle-aged. Your spine creaks like an old wooden door, and your knees make sounds like a bag of gravel being shaken by a confused farmer. Getting out of bed is a gamble. The floor is either wet from last night's rain that leaked through the thatched roof, or crusty from something the neighbor's chicken did. Either way, your bare feet are now part of the ecosystem down there. Oh, and privacy? What's that? Your entire family, and probably some random cousin who never leaves, are waking up right next to you. No bedroom, no curtains, no me time, just communal everything. Welcome to a morning in medieval Europe, where you're never truly alone, because parasites, rodents, and 8 other people are always with you. And this is just how your day begins. Everything is only going to get worse. But let's pause here in this medieval hovel and notice something remarkable. Right now, in this moment, you're experiencing what would have been impossible luxury for our peasant friend. You're lying in a space that belongs to you, where you can control the temperature, where the air doesn't carry the constant threat of disease, where your biggest concern might be whether you remembered to charge your phone. The darkness around you is peaceful, not filled with the sounds of livestock, snoring relatives, and the scratching of things you'd rather not identify. Your pillow cradles your head with a softness that would have been reserved for kings. If kings had pillows like yours, which they didn't. Feel that gentle weight of your clean blanket. Notice how it doesn't smell like wet animals or old ale, how it doesn't scratch your skin or harbor small creatures. This is luxury beyond the dreams of 99% of all humans who have ever lived. In our medieval world, morning meant waking up already exhausted, already uncomfortable, already fighting for survival before your feet hit the floor. But you wake up surrounded by comfort so profound that it would have seemed like magic to anyone from 1325. But let your breathing slow down. Let your body sink deeper into this impossible luxury, and prepare to visit a world where the simple act of waking up was already a victory against the odds. Because our medieval peasant is about to face a day that would challenge every assumption you have about human endurance, starting with the most basic human need, which, in 1325, was an adventure unto itself. The straw beneath you shifts and rustles as you finally force yourself to move. Each piece of dried grass pokes through the thin cloth covering, creating a bed that's less comfortable than sleeping on a pile of twigs. But this is what you have. This is what everyone has, except for the lords in their stone castles, and even they're not sleeping on anything you'd recognize as comfortable. Your family begins to stir around you. Your mother coughs, a deep, rattling cough that she's had for months now. Your father groans as his back protests against another night on straw. Your younger siblings whimper softly in the cold, and somewhere in the corner, that cousin, the one who showed up last harvest and never left, starts snoring again. The air is thick with breath vapor, everyone's exhalations creating small clouds in the frigid air. There's no heating system, no furnace humming quietly in the background, just the dying embers of last night's fire, barely glowing in the stone hearth that dominates one wall of your single room. You can hear the animals stirring too, because, yes, your goats and chickens live with you. It's practical. Their body heat helps warm the space, and it keeps them safe from wolves and thieves. But it also means your home smells like, well, like animals live in it, because they do. This is your sanctuary, your private space, your bedroom, living room, kitchen, and barn, all rolled into one. And in a few moments, you'll have to leave even this dubious comfort and face a world that's actively trying to kill you in a dozen different ways. But first, nature is calling. And in 1325, answering that call is about to become your first adventure of the day. So you've managed to crawl out of your horrific medieval straw pile. Congratulations! Now, nature is calling, and it's not calling politely. It's screaming. This is when you start to desperately miss the modern bathroom. No toilet, no seat, no toilet paper, no flush handle. Not even a slightly annoyed-looking plunger in the corner. In the 14th century, answering nature's call was an adventure, a social experiment, and often a public event. If you're a peasant, your bathroom is probably a wooden bucket behind the house, and it's already full, because Uncle Wolfstan had a rough night after eating some rotten turnips. The smell is epic. You hold your breath, do your business, and then, here's the exciting part. You dump it in the street. Yes, the street. You're supposed to shout something like, "Gardyloo!" before hurling it out the window. That's Old French for "look out for the water below." Although honestly, nobody moves fast enough anyway. The streets in medieval towns are open sewers, a charming river of human waste, animal droppings, and mysterious liquids you don't want to examine closely. You walk carefully, trying to balance on slippery stones, dodging the organic landmines that neighbors have left behind. Now, what if you're lucky enough to live in a town with public latrines? Congratulations. You get to sit shoulder to shoulder with strangers in a communal toilet, where privacy is a myth and ventilation is a cruel joke. You can make small talk, but try not to breathe too deeply. Toilet paper? Never heard of it. Most people wiped with straw, leaves, rags, moss, or if they felt particularly luxurious, a scrap of wool. Sometimes, nothing at all. This might explain why handshaking wasn't popular at the time. And if you're in a castle, surely it's better, right? Well, sort of. You might have a garderobe, a hole in the wall where your waist drops straight down into the moat below. Great idea, except your enemies know this. And yes, attackers sometimes climbed into castles through the waist chute. Talk about a backdoor entrance. So whether you're a peasant or a baron, medieval toilet time was a ritual of humiliation. It was cold, public, dangerous, and never not disgusting. Just one slip on that wet stone path, and you're face first in what's left of humanity, and you still haven't brushed your teeth. But we'll talk about that later. For now, just relax. Breathe that clean 21st century air and feel grateful. But let's really think about what this means. This most basic human function that you handle multiple times every day without a second thought. Right now, wherever you are, there's probably a bathroom within 50 feet of you, a private space with a locking door, running water, soft paper, proper lighting, and a seat that's actually designed for human comfort. You can take as long as you need. No one is waiting outside with a bucket. No one is shouting warnings about flying waste. No risk of disease from contaminated water. No fear of enemy soldiers crawling up through the plumbing. The water that flushes away your waste disappears into a complex system of pipes and treatment plants. An engineering marvel that cleans and purifies everything before returning it safely to the environment. In medieval times, waste went directly into the street, into the river where people got their drinking water, into the same space where children played. Think about that for a moment. Every time you flip that little handle, you're activating a system more sophisticated than anything a medieval king could have imagined. The water that refills the bowl is cleaner than anything they drank. The privacy you enjoy was more absolute than anything available to the richest nobles. And the paper, oh, the paper, soft, designed specifically for its purpose, available in endless supply. Medieval people would have considered toilet paper a luxury beyond imagination. If they could have even conceived of such a thing, feel your body relaxing into your comfortable bed, surrounded by all these invisible conveniences, protected by systems and technologies that make the basic functions of life effortless and dignified. You live like an emperor compared to even the richest people of 1325. Our medieval peasant is now stumbling through muddy streets, trying to avoid the worst of the human and animal waste that flows like a river between the buildings. The smell is overwhelming. A thick, choking cloud of decomposition and disease that hangs over everything like a fog. But somehow, people adapted. They lived their entire lives surrounded by this. Children grew up thinking this was normal. Nobles held court while the stench of open sewers drifted through their castle windows. Priests gave sermons while the congregation tried not to step in the muck outside the church. This was just life, the baseline of human existence. And our peasant accepts it the same way you accept the existence of electricity or clean water, as simply the way things are. Now, having survived the morning's bathroom adventure, it's time for breakfast. And if you think the sanitation was challenging, wait until you see what passes for food. You've survived the bathroom. You deserve a reward, right? Maybe a nice breakfast. Something warm, delicious, comforting. Sorry, this is medieval Europe. Nothing is comforting here. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is a grim affair. No eggs Benedict. No coffee maker gurgling to life, and certainly no buttered toast. You sit down or squat near the fire in front of a wooden bowl containing something that looks like it was just scraped from a muddy boot. Welcome to your daily serving of pottage. Pottage is a thick, lumpy stew made from whatever you can find. Grains, vegetables, maybe a few beans if you're lucky. It's been simmering in the same pot for days, sometimes weeks, with new ingredients just dumped on top of the old. It's less like a recipe and more like an ongoing edible experiment. Alongside it is a chunk of bread, hard enough to deflect an arrow. It's made from barley flour or rye, often mixed with sawdust, ground acorns, or other creative ingredients, because wheat is a rich person's fantasy. This bread is not your friend. You don't slice it. You have to negotiate with it. And what about drinks? You're not sipping orange juice or an oat milk latte. You're drinking ale. Yes, ale at 6 a.m. Why? Because water everywhere is full of parasites and filth. So you start your day with weak beer, low alcohol content, high survival chances. Children drink it too. Nobody's happy about it, but at least it won't kill you immediately. Want some meat or cheese? Keep dreaming. That's for Sundays and holy days, and only if your Lord is feeling generous. Most peasants don't eat meat more than a few times a year. Fresh fruit? Only when it's in season and hasn't fermented into wine yet. And don't even think about spices unless you're royalty. A pinch of pepper is worth more than your monthly wages. Salt is so valuable, it's kept under lock and key. So you chew your gritty bread, swallow your medieval ale, and try not to think about the mouse that might have gnawed your porridge bowl during the night. Breakfast doesn't energize you. It just happens to you. And now that you've been properly malnourished, it's time to work like your life depends on it. Because it absolutely does. But before we move on to the back-breaking labor that awaits our peasant, let's take a moment to appreciate something truly extraordinary happening right now. As you lie in your comfortable bed, within arm's reach, you probably have access to food that would have made a medieval king weep with envy. Fresh fruit from around the world, available year-round. Vegetables that were completely unknown in medieval Europe. Spices that were once worth more than gold, now sitting casually in your kitchen cabinet. meat that's been safely processed, refrigerated, and prepared to exact specifications. And the beverages, clean water that flows endlessly from a tap, coffee from distant mountains, teas from across oceans, juices pressed from fruits and stored safely for months. Every single thing you drink is cleaner and safer than anything available to medieval royalty. Think about your last breakfast. Probably something you grabbed quickly, maybe even complained about for being boring or routine. But that boring breakfast contained more nutrition, variety, and safety than a medieval feast. The bread you might have toasted was softer than anything a noble ever tasted. The milk in your cereal was safer than any liquid they ever drank. Even your most basic breakfast represents a chain of miracles. Refrigeration to keep things fresh, transportation systems to bring ingredients from around the world, food safety regulations that prevent contamination, packaging that protects everything from spoilage. Our medieval peasant is now staring into their wooden bowl, seeing the same thick gray sludge they saw yesterday, and will see tomorrow and every day until they die. No variety, no choice, no guarantee that what they're eating won't make them sick. The bread in their hands is coarse and gritty, mixed with whatever fillers were available to stretch the grain. Sometimes that meant sawdust, sometimes ground tree bark, sometimes things that weren't supposed to be food at all, but desperation made them edible. And that weak ale they're drinking, it's not refreshing, it's survival. Every sip is a calculated risk, better than water that might kill you immediately, but still carrying its own dangers. Children learn to drink alcohol before they could walk properly, not because their parents wanted them to, but because clean water simply didn't exist. Feel your body sinking deeper into your bed, surrounded by abundance so vast that you probably throw away more food in a week than our peasant will see in a month. Let that security wrap around you like a warm blanket. The security of knowing that when you're hungry, food will be there. Clean, safe, and delicious. Now, our peasant finishes their grim breakfast and prepares to face a day of labor that would break most modern people, while wearing clothes that would be considered torture devices today. You've finished your depressing medieval breakfast, and now it's time to get dressed. Although that's not really going to help. Your wardrobe consists of exactly one outfit. One. That's a wool tunic or linen shirt that you've worn every day for months, possibly years. There's no such thing as seasonal fashion. Only wear this until it disintegrates or gives you a fungal infection. Underwear? Optional. If you're lucky, maybe a linen undergarment. If not, well, you're going commando beneath layers of itchy, sweaty wool that's been lovingly patched by someone who probably didn't know what a straight stitch looked like. There are no washing machines, no soap, and absolutely no dry cleaners in sight. So your clothes are stained, stiff, and smell like a compost pile that's been marinating in a pig pen. Even if you wanted to wash them, it wouldn't be easy. You'd have to haul water from the river, or well, heat it over a fire, scrub your tunic on a board with ash or lye solution, and hang it in sunlight, which appears about 3 days a year. And don't get me started on shoes. If you own any, they're made of untreated leather, stitched together haphazardly, and provide about as much arch support as a banana peel. Most peasants just go barefoot, walking through mud, through manure, through medieval landmines, across sharp rocks and puddles of disease. All of this means one thing: your skin hates you. You itch constantly. Fleas, lice, and bed bugs live rent-free on your body. Everyone has them. Flea-ridden nobles, itchy monks, children who are walking insect farms. Nobody escapes. You'll scratch your armpit with a wooden spoon while chatting with the local priest, and nobody even blinks. Your skin is raw from chafing. Your scalp is a battlefield of bites. And if you develop a rash, too bad. No dermatologist, no hydrocortisone, no one to tell you it might be scabies. You just keep suffering. And if you're lucky enough not to get infected, great. That rash will simply be your unwanted medieval companion for the next 6 months. Now that you're dressed in misery and wrapped in discomfort, it's time to go outside and start working yourself to death. But let's pause in this itchy, uncomfortable medieval morning and consider the miracle of what you're wearing right now. Even if you're just in pajamas or a simple t-shirt, you're experiencing luxury that would have amazed kings. Your clothes were made in factories with precise machinery, stitched with perfect, even seams, from fabrics that have been designed for comfort and durability. They've been washed in clean water with soap specifically designed to remove dirt without damaging the material. They smell like nothing, or maybe like fabric softener, which is its own small miracle. The cotton in your shirt is softer than the finest linen available to medieval nobility. If you're wearing synthetic fabrics, you're wrapped in materials that didn't exist anywhere in the world until very recently. Fabrics designed by scientists to wick away moisture, maintain their shape, resist stains. Your underwear, something so basic you never think about it, represents centuries of textile innovation. The elastic waistband alone is a marvel of engineering. The comfort and hygiene it provides was unimaginable to previous generations. And your feet, whether you're wearing socks, slippers, or nothing at all, are touching surfaces that are clean and safe. No risk of stepping on something sharp or toxic. No fear of parasites entering through cuts on your soles. Even if your clothes feel rough or uncomfortable to you. They're infinitely more comfortable than anything worn by 99% of all humans who have ever lived. The simple ability to change clothes, to have multiple outfits, to wash them regularly. These are luxuries beyond the dreams of medieval royalty. Our peasant is now fully dressed in their single, filthy, uncomfortable outfit, and they'll wear these exact same clothes for months. The itching is constant. The smell is overwhelming. The discomfort is just part of existence. But they don't complain because this is normal. This is what clothing is. The idea that clothes could be comfortable, clean, or changed regularly would seem as fantastic as flying horses. Let your body relax into the softness around you. Feel the clean, gentle fabrics touching your skin, and appreciate this invisible luxury that surrounds you every moment of every day. Now, our peasant, dressed in their uncomfortable armor of wool and leather, is ready to face whatever medieval medicine has to offer, which is about to make everything else seem pleasant by comparison. You've drunk contaminated water, or maybe you just stubbed your toe on a disappointment-shaped rock. Either way, you're sick. You need help. You need a doctor. Too bad. You live in medieval times, where medicine is really just polite torture with a theology degree. Let's start with diagnosis. Everything wrong with you, whether it's a cough, a rash, a broken bone, or the bubonic plague lurking around the corner, is caused by your humors being out of balance. The four humors are blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. According to medieval science, your health depends on keeping these balanced, like some kind of internal organ soup. Got a fever? Obviously too much blood. The answer? Bloodletting. That's right. Let's drain your life force into a bowl with a dull blade or a hungry leech. And yes, barbers often did this job. Imagine getting a haircut and a hemoglobin test in one visit. Buy one, get one, baby. Feeling sad or anxious? That's clearly excess black bile. The cure: purging. Maybe a warming herbal laxative, or just prayers and a cold compress while everyone avoids eye contact and starts building your coffin. Now, if you break a bone or have a nasty wound, you're in real trouble. No anesthesia, unless you count passing out from pain as anesthesia. Surgery is performed with knives that haven't been cleaned since the Crusades. Instruments are heated over fire, not to sterilize them, but because they look scarier that way. Antibiotics? Centuries away. Germ theory? Not invented yet. They think disease comes from bad air, or God being annoyed with your moral failures. Got a stomach ache? Must be your sinful thoughts. Hope you like confessing while vomiting. If your condition gets worse, you'll be treated with more leeches, maybe some ground beetles, and a bedside priest reading last rites, just in case. At this point, they're preparing for the cure, known as death. And if, by some miracle, you recover, everyone just assumes God took pity on you. The doctor takes all the credit, and the leech gets a promotion. So yes, in medieval times, medicine was less about curing illness and more about surviving the treatment. Now take a deep breath and feel the miracle of a simple paracetamol, a simple thing, a modern miracle. But let's truly understand what this means for our medieval peasant and what it means for you, lying comfortably in your bed, surrounded by medical miracles you never think about. Right now, if you got sick, truly sick, you could walk into a building where people have dedicated their entire lives to understanding exactly how your body works. They could look inside you without cutting you open. They could test your blood and tell you precisely what's wrong within hours. If you needed surgery, you'd be given drugs that would make you completely unconscious, feeling nothing, while skilled hands repaired whatever was broken. You'd wake up in a clean room, with clean bandages, monitored by machines that track every heartbeat. If you had an infection, you could take a pill, a single pill, that would deploy molecular soldiers to hunt down and destroy the specific bacteria making you sick. Diseases that killed millions throughout history are now minor inconveniences, solved with a quick trip to the pharmacy. Our medieval peasant has none of this. When they get sick, and they will get sick, because everyone gets sick in a world without sanitation or clean water, their options are terrifying. The local healer might decide their fever is caused by too much blood and cut open a vein, making them weaker when they need strength most. Or they might apply leeches, actual living creatures that attach to the skin and suck blood, based on the theory that removing blood will somehow cure what's wrong. If the peasant breaks a bone, there's no X-ray to see the fracture, no setting the bone properly, no cast to keep it immobilized while it heals, just crude splints and prayer, often resulting in permanent disability or death from infection. Dental problems. Imagine toothache pain, the kind that makes you desperate for relief. But the only solution is having the tooth yanked out with pliers, no pain medication, often taking part of the jaw with it. Childbirth, which should be a celebration, is a life-threatening crisis every single time. No antiseptics, no understanding of infection, no pain relief, no emergency procedures if something goes wrong. Women die regularly from complications that would be routine to handle today. Mental illness is considered demonic possession or moral weakness. Physical disabilities are seen as divine punishment. There's no therapy, no medication, no support systems, just isolation and superstition. Feel your heart beating steadily in your chest. That rhythm is being monitored by nothing more complex than your own healthy body. But if needed, there are machines that could take over that function. Doctors who could repair it if it failed, medications that could regulate it if it became irregular. Your lungs are drawing in clean air. If you had trouble breathing, there are inhalers, oxygen tanks, ventilators. If your kidneys failed, there are machines that could clean your blood. If your liver stopped working, surgeons could replace it with one from a donor. Every system in your body is backed up by centuries of medical knowledge and technology. You live surrounded by safety nets that would seem like magic to anyone from the medieval world. Our peasant lives with no safety net at all. Every minor illness could become fatal. Every accident could mean death or permanent disability. Every day is a gamble against disease, injury, and the cures that might be worse than the sickness itself. And yet, they continue. They wake up each morning and face another day, not because they're braver than you, but because this is simply what human existence was like for most of history. Suffering was normal. Pain was expected. Survival was an achievement. Let your breathing slow down. Feel your body relaxing into the safety and comfort that surrounds you, protected by invisible systems of medicine and technology that work constantly to keep you healthy and safe. Now our peasant, having survived another encounter with medieval medicine, prepares to face the rest of their day. But that's a story for another time. For now, we're going to drift away from the harsh realities of 1325 and float toward gentler shores of history. Now, let's drift away from the mud and misery of medieval times and float toward what seems like a more civilized era. The Victorian Age, the 19th century, a time of industrial progress, grand ball gowns, and a peculiar obsession with death. Sleep, for the Victorians, was not a safe refuge. It was a doorway to the unknown. They believed that night was when noxious vapors rose from the ground, carrying disease. Bedroom windows were often sealed shut, even during sweltering summer nights, for fear of night air. The room became stifling, oxygen starved, a perfect environment for nightmares. And they had nightmares. One of the greatest fears of the era was being buried alive. Imagine this. Medicine was still primitive. Determining death wasn't always accurate. Stories, whether true or fictional, spread about people waking up in their coffins, fingernails broken from clawing at the wooden lid in desperation. This fear grew so large, it created an entire industry. People invented safety coffins equipped with elaborate devices. Some had a string running from the deceased person's hand up to a bell above ground. If you woke up, you simply pulled the rope. Others had air tubes, glass windows, and even escape ladders. There's not much evidence that any of these bells ever rang, but they provided a little comfort to the living. For women, sleep came with another discomfort, the corset. Many women wore corsets nearly 24/7. only removing them for bathing. Some even slept in a loosened version. This whalebone cage compressed internal organs, restricted breathing, and could cause all manner of health problems. Try to imagine attempting deep sleep when your rib cage is being squeezed, making it difficult to breathe comfortably, isn't it? Victorian sleep wasn't escape. It was vigilance, a journey into darkness with fears of disease, fears of premature burial, and the constant grip of fashion. Compared to that, perhaps our worries about unread emails tomorrow seem a bit more manageable. The Victorian bedroom was a curious place, filled with heavy, dark furniture that seemed designed to remind occupants of mortality. Massive wooden bed frames that looked more like monuments than furniture. Thick, dark curtains that blocked out not just light, but seemed to block out hope itself. The mattresses of the wealthy were stuffed with horsehair, which sounds luxurious until you realize that horsehair mattresses were notorious for harboring insects and developing an odor that could only be described as barnyard adjacent. The poor still slept on straw, but even the rich weren't sleeping on anything we'd consider comfortable. But it was the psychological atmosphere that made Victorian sleep truly unsettling. This was an era obsessed with death in ways that seem almost morbid to modern sensibilities. Photographs of deceased family members were common. Elaborate mourning rituals could last for years. Death was not hidden away in hospitals and funeral homes. It was present, visible, part of daily life. And so when Victorians closed their eyes at night, they did so with the full awareness that sleep was the cousin of death, that the line between unconsciousness and the final rest was thin and uncertain. Medical knowledge had advanced enough to make people aware of how fragile life was, but not enough to make them feel secure about it. The fear of premature burial was not entirely irrational. Medical understanding of comas, catalepsy, and other states that could mimic death was limited. There were documented cases, rare but real, of people being declared dead who later showed signs of life. These stories, embellished and exaggerated through retelling, created a cultural anxiety that permeated the Victorian psyche. The safety coffin industry that arose from this fear was both ingenious and macabre. The most elaborate versions included speaking tubes, air pumps, and emergency food supplies. Some had flags that would wave above ground if the occupant stirred. Others had elaborate bell systems with pulleys and counterweights. The wealthy would specify in their wills exactly which type of safety coffin they wanted, often including detailed instructions for how long their bodies should be monitored before final burial. Some insisted on having their throats cut or hearts pierced before burial, just to be absolutely certain they were truly dead. But perhaps the most telling aspect of Victorian sleep was how it reflected the era's relationship with technology and progress. They lived in a time of rapid change. Gaslight was replacing candles. Telegraphs were connecting distant cities. Steam engines were revolutionizing travel. The world was becoming faster, more connected, more mechanized. Yet sleep remained mysterious, uncontrollable, primitive. It was the one aspect of human experience that couldn't be improved with engineering or enhanced with new inventions. And so sleep became a nightly reminder of human vulnerability in an age that was beginning to believe technology could solve anything. For the Victorian, lying in bed meant confronting the limits of human control. The persistence of ancient fears in a modern world. The stubborn reality that for all their industrial progress, they were still fragile creatures in dark rooms, hoping to wake up in the morning. The corset added another layer of discomfort to this already anxious sleep. These garments were often so tight they displaced internal organs, pushed the liver up, compressed the lungs, restricted the diaphragm. Breathing became a conscious effort rather than an automatic function. Many women reported feeling faint or dizzy, especially when lying down. The combination of restricted breathing and the supine position could create a sensation of suffocation, not ideal for peaceful rest. Yet fashion demanded this sacrifice, and most women simply accepted the discomfort as part of being properly dressed. The whalebone stays that gave corsets, their shape were unforgiving. They didn't bend or give with the body's movements. Rolling over in sleep meant negotiating with this rigid cage. Finding a comfortable position was a careful process of arrangement and compromise, and the psychological effect was perhaps even more significant than the physical. Women went to sleep feeling constrained, controlled, shaped by external forces into an acceptable form, even in the privacy of their bedrooms, even in unconsciousness. They carried the weight of social expectations literally pressed against their bodies. Victorian sleep was haunted sleep, filled with the awareness of death, the discomfort of fashion, and the anxiety of an age caught between old superstitions and new knowledge. It was sleep that brought no peace, only a temporary respite from the fears that would return with each sunset. Modern sleep, your sleep, is a luxury the Victorians couldn't imagine. You close your eyes without fear of premature burial. You breathe freely, unrestricted by whalebone cages. You rest in beds designed for comfort rather than as reminders of mortality. Let that comfort surround you now. Feel the freedom of unrestricted breathing, the security of sleeping in an age where death is not a constant companion, where sleep is truly rest rather than anxious vigilance. Modern humans are obsessed with cleanliness. We shower daily, use deodorant, spray perfume. We try to eliminate our natural body odors. But for most of history, scent was part of life, and it wasn't always pleasant. Let's visit the Palace of Versailles in the 17th century under the Sun King Louis the XV. In our imagination, it's a place of splendor, of grand balls and elaborate gowns, and it was. But it also stank. This massive palace housed thousands of nobles, servants, and visitors, but had very few toilets. People often relieved themselves in hidden corners, hallways, and even unused fireplaces. The smell of urine and human waste mingled with rotting food scraps, sweat, and candle smoke. So how did they cope? With an all-out assault on the senses. Perfume wasn't used to create subtle fragrance. It was used as a weapon, a cover for other, less pleasant odors. Lords and ladies doused themselves in heavy scents on their bodies, clothes, wigs, and gloves. They carried pomanders filled with strong herbs and spices like musk, ambergris, and civet. Animal-derived scents that were potent and pungent to hold under their noses when passing through particularly fragrant areas. Bathing was rare. People believed that water, especially hot water, would open the pores and allow disease to enter the body. A typical noble's bath might simply be wiping down with a linen cloth soaked in alcohol or perfume. Layers of dirt and sweat were considered a natural protective barrier. Even dental care couldn't escape this rule. Toothbrushes existed but weren't common. People often rinsed with water or wine, or rubbed their teeth with cloth. Bad breath was normal. So the next time you step into your bathroom, turn on the shower and feel that warm, clean water. Remember that even the Sun King didn't have what you have. And perhaps be grateful that we live in an age where we don't need perfume to mask the smell of hallways. The relationship between scent and social status in historical times reveals something fascinating about human adaptation. What we would consider unbearable odors were simply background noise to people of previous eras. Their sense of smell adjusted, normalized, accepted as part of daily existence, what would send modern people running for fresh air. At Versailles, the morning routine of the nobility involved layers upon layers of scent application. Powdered wigs were dusted with scented powder. Gloves were soaked in perfumed oils. Clothing was stored with sachets of aromatic herbs. Even the fans that ladies carried were perfumed, creating small clouds of fragrance with each flutter. The perfumes themselves were nothing like the light, subtle scents we know today. They were heavy, almost aggressive compositions designed to compete with and overcome other odors. Musk, derived from deer, created a deep animal-based note. Ambergris, from whales, added a marine intensity. Civet, from cat-like creatures, provided a sharp, penetrating top note. These weren't pleasant by modern standards. They were functional. They created what perfumers call sillage, a scent trail that followed the wearer. announcing their presence before they arrived and lingering after they left. In a world where personal space was limited and privacy was rare, these scent signatures help create individual identity in crowded spaces. The pomanders that courtiers carried were small, round containers filled with aromatic substances. They were often made of precious metals, decorated with jewels, and worn as accessories. But their function was purely practical, a portable defense against the olfactory assault of daily life at court. Water, the foundation of modern cleanliness, was viewed with deep suspicion. Medical theory held that bathing weakened the body, made it vulnerable to disease, upset the natural balance of humors. The very wealthy might bathe a few times a year, often for ceremonial or medicinal purposes rather than cleanliness. Instead of water, people cleaned themselves with linen cloths, sometimes dampened with wine or vinegar. They changed their shirts when they had clean shirts available, believing that clean linen against the skin was more hygienic than washing the skin itself. This created a unique relationship with personal scent. People became intimately familiar with their own body odors and those of their families and social circles. Scent became a form of identification. Mothers could recognize their children by smell. Lovers identified each other through natural pheromones mixed with personal perfume combinations. The absence of modern dental care created another layer of olfactory complexity. Without fluoride, regular brushing, or dental visits, tooth decay was universal. Bad breath wasn't just common, it was inevitable. People developed social customs around this reality, speaking at distances that seem unfriendly by modern standards, using fans not just for cooling, but for directing airflow, consuming strong flavored foods and drinks that could mask oral odors. Spices and herbs took on medicinal as well as culinary significance. Strong flavors were believed to combat disease, purify the blood, and balance bodily humors. The wealthy consumed heavily spiced foods partly for flavor, but also as a form of internal perfuming, an attempt to make their breath and even their sweat more pleasant. The clothing of the era absorbed and held scents like fabric museums of daily life. Heavy woolens, silks, and brocades couldn't be washed frequently, if at all. They were aired out, brushed, and spot cleaned, but they retained the accumulated scents of the wearer's life. A nobleman's coat might carry layers of perfume, food odors, sweat, smoke from fireplaces, and the general atmosphere of wherever it had been worn. This created a kind of olfactory autobiography, clothing that told the story of the wearer's activities through accumulated scents. Fresh clothes were a luxury available only to the wealthy, and even then, fresh meant aired out and perfumed rather than actually clean. The servants who maintained these households lived in even closer proximity to the accumulated scents of daily life. They worked in kitchens thick with cooking odors, clean chambers where bodily functions took place. handled soiled linens and clothing. Their own hygiene was even more limited than their employers', yet they were expected to maintain the olfactory illusions that made aristocratic life bearable. Women of the era developed elaborate systems for managing their personal scent in ways that modern women would find bewildering. Undergarments were changed when available, but the complex layers of corsets, stays, and gowns meant that full undressing was a major undertaking. Scented powders were dusted between layers of clothing. Perfumed oils were applied to pulse points. Aromatic herbs were sewn into clothing or carried in small pouches. The bedroom became a sanctuary of personal scent management. Bed linens were dried with lavender or other aromatic herbs. Pillows were stuffed with scented materials. Chamber pots were disguised with decorative covers and surrounded by strong-smelling flowers or herbs. Yet, for all this elaborate scent management, people of the era weren't necessarily unhappy with their situation. They had no reference point for modern cleanliness, no knowledge that their lifestyle created health risks, no sense that their olfactory environment was lacking. They developed aesthetic appreciation for the heavy, complex scents that surrounded them, found beauty in the layered aromatic compositions that defined their social spaces. Imagine stepping into that world now. Your modern, sensitive nose encountering the full force of historical human scent. The shock would be overwhelming. Not just the intensity, but the complexity. Every person, every room, every piece of clothing would assault your senses with information your brain isn't designed to process. But lying in your clean bed, breathing air that smells of nothing more than perhaps a light detergent or fabric softener, you can appreciate the miracle of modern odorlessness. The absence of smell that allows you to focus on other senses. The cleanliness that lets you relax without olfactory assault. The simple luxury of not needing to mask your natural human scent in order to be socially acceptable. Let your breathing slow down. Appreciate the clean, neutral air around you and drift towards sleep, knowing that when you wake, you won't need to armor yourself with heavy perfumes just to face the day. History often tells us about people with exciting jobs. Kings, inventors, explorers. But the world was built on the backs of people doing boring, repetitive work. Jobs we rarely think about. Think about the manuscript scribes in medieval monasteries. Before printing presses, every book was a handmade work of art. For hours, days, years, a monk would sit in a cold room called a scriptorium, hunched over a piece of vellum, carefully copying each word by hand, with quill and homemade ink. It was work that demanded extraordinary patience. One mistake could ruin an expensive page. The light was often just candlelight, damaging their eyes. They worked in silence because talking was forbidden. But through their quiet, monotonous work, the knowledge of the ancient world, philosophy, literature, science, was preserved and passed down through the Dark Ages. Every book they completed was a small victory against forgetting. Or think about the telephone operators in the early 20th century. Before automatic dialing systems, every phone call had to be manually connected. Young women, called hello girls, sat for hours in front of massive switchboards tangled with wires and plugs. They had to memorize the locations of hundreds, even thousands of lines. They had to work quickly, accurately, and always maintain a calm, polite voice, even when dealing with cranky customers. Number, please? They were the invisible connectors of the world, weaving the first communication networks. Their work seemed repetitive, but it changed how humans interact forever. These jobs, and countless others, might look boring from the outside, but they were essential small gears in the great machine of history. They remind us that sometimes the most patient, quiet actions are the ones with the greatest impact. And now, perhaps your only job is to let your mind rest. The scribes who preserved civilization didn't see themselves as heroes. They saw themselves as servants, copying texts they might not even fully understand, working in conditions that were often uncomfortable and always demanding. Their hands cramped from holding quills for hours. Their backs ached from hunching over writing surfaces. Their eyes strained in dim light that flickered and danced, making precise work even more challenging. Yet these anonymous workers created some of the most beautiful objects in human history. Illuminated manuscripts with gold leaf that still glows after centuries. Careful lettering that turns words into art. Margins decorated with creatures both real and fantastical. They didn't just copy text. They created beauty as a side effect of their dedication to preservation. The monastery scriptorium was a place of profound quiet, not the comfortable silence of a modern library, but the enforced silence of religious discipline. These men worked for hours without speaking, communicating only through established gestures or written notes when absolutely necessary. The only sounds were the scratch of quill on parchment, the whisper of pages turning, the distant chanting of prayers from other parts of the monastery. This silence wasn't punishment. It was considered sacred. Each word copied was an act of devotion. Each page completed a prayer made manifest. The monks understood that they were not just preserving books. They were keeping alive the conversation between past and future, ensuring that knowledge would survive the collapse of empires and the passage of centuries. The telephone operators of the early 1900s worked in a different kind of demanding environment. The switchboard rooms were noisy, chaotic places where dozens of women sat in rows, their hands flying across panels of plugs and switches. Every few seconds, a light would blink somewhere on the board, indicating an incoming call that needed immediate attention. Number, please, became the most frequently spoken phrase in many cities. But behind those simple words was a complex mental process. The operator had to identify the caller, understand their request through often poor connections and heavy accents, locate the correct destination on the vast switchboard, and manually create the connection by inserting plugs into the appropriate jacks. They had to remember which lines were busy, which numbers were out of service, which customers had special billing arrangements. They handled emergency calls, business transactions, personal conversations. They were the human nervous system of the growing telephone network. And they did this while being monitored constantly. Supervisors listened in on calls to ensure proper procedure and polite service. Operators could be disciplined for speaking too slowly, too quickly, too informally, or not informally enough. They had to maintain perfect pronunciation and consistent demeanor regardless of their own mood or the rudeness of callers. The work was physically demanding too. The plugs and switches required precise manipulation. The headsets were heavy and uncomfortable. Operators often developed repetitive stress injuries from the constant reaching and plugging motions. They worked in shifts around the clock because the telephone system never slept. Yet these women, and they were almost exclusively women, considered to have the right temperament and voice quality for the work, were creating something revolutionary. Every connection they made was a small miracle of human communication. Every number, please, was an invitation to collapse distance, to make the world smaller and more connected. They were witnesses to history in ways they probably didn't fully appreciate. They connected the first transcontinental calls. They handled emergency communications during disasters. They listened to proposals, business deals, family crises. The full spectrum of human experience flowing through their switchboards. The transition to automatic dialing eventually made their jobs obsolete. But for several decades, human civilization depended on their patient, repetitive work. Every phone call in the early 20th century was possible only because somewhere a woman in a headset was paying attention, ready to connect two distant voices. These examples represent thousands of similar stories throughout history. People doing work that seemed mundane but was actually foundational. The clerks who kept records that historians now treasure. The seamstresses who created the clothing that defined different eras. The farmers who developed the crops that fed civilizations. The servants who maintained the households where important decisions were made. Most of these workers remain anonymous to history. We don't know their names, their personalities, their dreams, but their collective labor created the world we inhabit. Every convenience you enjoy, every book you can read, every phone call you can make, all built on the accumulated efforts of people doing jobs that might have seemed boring at the time. There's something profound about this. The idea that the most ordinary work can have extraordinary consequences. That patience and repetition and attention to detail, qualities that don't seem dramatic or heroic, are actually the foundation of human progress. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, you join a long tradition of rest that has sustained workers throughout history. The scribes who finally set down their quills after hours of copying. The operators who finished their shifts and went home to quiet houses. The countless people who did repetitive, demanding work and then sought the restoration that only sleep can provide. Your rest is earned not just by your own daily efforts, but by your participation in this ongoing human project of work and rest, effort and restoration, the daily repetition that builds everything we value. Let your breathing slow down. Let your mind release the tasks of today and sleep as generations of workers have slept before you. Deeply, peacefully, and with the satisfaction of another day completed. We've traveled a long way tonight, from the itchy straw mattresses of 1325 to the anxiety-filled safety coffins of Victorian times, in the perfume-masked hallways of Versailles. It's easy to romanticize the past, to look at paintings and think about simpler times. But the truth is often much more uncomfortable. History, mostly, is a story of struggle. Struggle against disease, against want, against ignorance. Every small comfort in your life today is the result of thousands of years of that struggle. Your soft bed is a legacy. The clean water flowing from your tap is a miracle. The ability to read these words under electric light is a pinnacle of human achievement. We live in a world of quiet luxury. Luxury our ancestors couldn't even dream of. So, as you drift towards sleep, let gentle gratitude wrap around you. Grateful for your warm blanket. Grateful for the silence. Grateful that you don't have to worry about plague or being buried alive. Let the stories of the past become a lullaby, a gentle reminder of the comfort of the present. Let them carry away your worries, like rivers of time carrying everything away. There's nothing left to do, nothing left to think about. Just your breathing, in and out. Feel your body growing heavier, sinking deeper into the mattress. Let go. Relax. History will be here when you wake up. But for now, it's time to rest. Sleep well. And dream of anything except pottage porridge. Sleep well. The weight of history settles around you like a blanket. Not heavy with burden, but soft with perspective. Every discomfort you learned about tonight, every hardship, every struggle has led to this moment of perfect comfort. Your pillow cradles your head with a softness that kings would have envied. Your mattress supports your body with engineering that would have seemed impossible to medieval minds. The air you breathe is clean. The water nearby is pure. The space around you is safe. But more than that, you live in a time when sleep itself is respected. You don't have to fear the night air. You don't have to worry about safety coffins or chamber pots. You don't have to endure the discomfort of whalebone corsets or the assault of overwhelming scents. Your sleep is peaceful sleep, restorative sleep, sleep that comes without fear, without physical discomfort, without the constant vigilance that marked every previous generation. Feel your eyelids growing heavy, like curtains slowly drawing closed on the theater of consciousness. The stories you've heard tonight fade into gentle background whispers, medieval voices calling across centuries to remind you how far you've come. The monastery scribes have set down their quills for the night, their day of patient copying complete. The telephone operators have disconnected their headsets, their shifts of connecting distant voices finished. The Victorian ladies have finally removed their corsets, breathing freely in the darkness of their bedrooms. All the struggles of the past have led to this moment, this perfect moment of rest in a world that has solved the problems that tormented every generation before you. Your breathing naturally slows, becomes deeper, more rhythmic. Each exhale releases a little more tension, a little more of the day's concerns, a little more conscious control. The brown noise around you becomes like the sound of time itself, a gentle static that carries away the sharp edges of thought, leaving only the soft, rounded edges of dreams beginning to form. In medieval times, people went to sleep tired from backbreaking labor, hungry from inadequate food, uncomfortable from rough clothing and harder beds. But you sink into comfort that would have been beyond their imagination. In Victorian times, people closed their eyes, haunted by fears of premature burial and constrained by fashion that made even breathing difficult. But you rest in perfect safety and complete physical freedom. In the perfumed palaces of history, people slept despite overwhelming sensory assault. The constant smell of unwashed bodies and inadequate sanitation. But you drift off, surrounded by the gentle neutrality of cleanliness. Every breath you take is cleaner than any air they knew. Every surface you touch is softer than any fabric they felt. Every moment of rest you enjoy is more peaceful than any sleep they achieved. Let this knowledge settle into your bones, this deep appreciation for the invisible luxuries that surround you always. The miracle of modern life isn't just in the big things, the smartphones and cars and airplanes. It's in the smallest details, the cotton in your sheets, the spring in your mattress, the silence that lets you think your own thoughts. Your mind begins to wander now. Thoughts becoming less focused, more dreamlike. The logical part of your brain that processed all those historical facts is gently powering down, making space for the unconscious mind to take over. Images from tonight's journey might float through your awareness, but they're no longer sharp or disturbing. They're just stories now. tales from a distant time that make your present moment seem even more precious. The medieval peasant has found whatever rest was possible on their straw mattress. The Victorian lady has finally escaped her corset for the night. The perfumed courtier has retreated to their scented chambers. All of history is settling down to sleep, and you're settling down with them. But while they slept fitfully, uncomfortably, fearfully, you sleep peacefully. While they faced each night as another trial to endure, you welcome sleep as a friend. Feel your body melting into the mattress. Boundaries between self and bed dissolving. Your arms and legs grow heavy, so heavy they seem to sink right through the surface you're lying on. The gentle rhythm of your breathing becomes the only sound that matters. In and out, in and out, like waves on a distant shore. Like the slow tick of time itself. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you're still grateful. Grateful for the journey tonight. Grateful for the comfort around you. Grateful for the simple miracle of peaceful sleep in a safe place. But even gratitude is fading now, becoming part of the general warmth that surrounds you. The deep satisfaction of a day completed and rest earned. The brown noise continues its gentle static, like the sound of all of history whispering together. Millions of voices from across the centuries, all saying the same thing. Rest now. You've earned it. Sleep well. Tomorrow will be better than today. Your conscious mind makes its final observations of the night, noting the softness beneath you, the warmth around you, the perfect quiet that cradles you. Then even observation fades, leaving only the slow, steady rhythm of a body at rest. Sleep is coming now, not as an interruption of life, but as life's greatest gift to itself. The daily miracle of consciousness voluntarily letting go, trusting in the deep wisdom of rest and restoration. All the discomforts of history fade to nothing. All the struggles of the past become just interesting stories. All the problems of today dissolve into tomorrow's possibilities. There's nothing left to think about, nothing left to worry about, nothing left to do except drift and sleep. Sweet dreams, traveler through time. Sleep peacefully in your quiet luxury and wake refreshed in your miraculous present.